What's up, everybody? Welcome to On the Record, a punk music podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Newman, alongside the Doctor, Ben Brennan.
I finally have a nickname. Things
You are a
are going
doctor.
well. I am a doctor. I am a doctor.
It's true. That's great to hear.
A witch doctor.
On the Record is a fan podcast where we discuss the Fat Records catalog album by album, side by side, chronologically. We have no true music expertise. We're just some friends shooting the shit about albums we loved growing up. Ben, I'm looking forward to talking to you about No Use for a Name's Leche con Carne. But first, can you remind me why we decided on such a daunting quest?
Call it nostalgia or navel gazing. This is a fun way to revisit our youth through the lens of the records we loved. All right.
Yes, indeed.
Let's go through some liner notes. So the album, as mentioned, is No Use for a Name's Leche con Carne. Milk with meat.
Do you have any theories as to why they have titled this record that?
So my best theory is that it is a weird reference to the song The Bruise off of Punk and Drublic, where they make a line about eating kosher. We separate our milk plates from our meat, and that it is meant to be saying that they are not kosher.
You know what? That could totally be the truth. I could not find any information anywhere on the internet about why No Use for a Name called this record Leche con Carne. But
there's not a dish called that, right? I mean, that's basically Charlie Kelly's milk steak.
Yes, the traditional dish known as Leche con Carne.
Yeah. Well, I thought maybe it could be like a cheesy steak, steak with like a spicy cheese sauce on it or something. I don't know.
I would try that. I don't think I'd be super into it, but I'd try it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So is Tony Sly on vocal, Ed Greger playing lead guitar, Steve Papaltzis on bass, and Rory Koff on drum. Was recorded at Razor's Edge Recording by Ryan Green and produced by Fat Mike, No Use for a Name.
All right. The most important song on the side one of this record, and that's Soulmate. Because Soulmate has, it has like a real legacy. Because this was the first song that was released by Fat that ended up being played on MTV. And yeah, Soulmate was the very first Fat Wreck video to make it to MTV. And to me, it makes sense. This was like, Soulmate is very catchy. And I think that it is a really good pick for like a song that sort of sums up the record. And it sort of shows like, where Fat Wreck and where punk is at in the moment and sort of where it's heading. Because this is the first record to really go for, I guess, more of like that pop punk edge that Green Day brought to the table and took them so far. But I just think on the whole on this record you can just hear there's like, to me there's like a few things that come through really strong, and that's No Effects, Bad Religion, and then more of like maybe that Lookout Records style of pop punk coming through in like the melodies.
Interestingly, on this song in particular, I actually wrote that it sounds a lot like a Lagwagon song. I think they've got a few songs on this record that sound quite a bit like Lagwagon, and I thought this one was one of those.
Yeah, it definitely has. Some of the guitars remind me of something that from Haas, which this came out before Haas. But this is really the only one for me that felt that way. But definitely, I know what you're saying. Definitely, like I can hear that in Haas. But on the whole, I mean, this is No Use for a Name is sort of taking those like very No Effects, like buzzing guitars to the, that like their inevitable pop conclusion that, in a way that NoFX hadn't. And it's just like a different approach that allowed for that, I guess. But I think it's a fun song. I think it's definitely a highlight on the album. I think the lyrics they're good. It's about insecurities being your soulmate because you can't let go of them.
I actually really like the lyrics to this quite a bit.
Yeah, I like this one. I think this is definitely the strongest track on side one by like a country mile. Like it feels like it has its own identity. And it's just, it's a fun song to listen to.
It's the best one on side one. I did really like Couch Boy as well. What did you think about that song?
Yeah, I like that one. I think I did notice too that like the lyrics on this record don't stray too far from what Tony was writing about on the Daily Grind. I just think it's better across the board. Like his writing. I mean, honestly, like the entire band just huge. Like they just leveled up on the whole for this record. Like this is a far better record than Daily Grind, and in every respect. The lyrics, the music, Tony Sly's vocals very much improved. But this is, they did something, they wrote about something similar on Daily Grind, but Couch Boy is just about TV news media affecting you so much that you sit at home in fear of the world, and the apathy that can inspire in a person. And that's still maybe more relevant than ever, honestly.
Another song about TV. I was listening to it because, like,
I know,
feel like almost every, one of the only bands that I don't think touched on TV very much at all, or like went down the like TV's like brainwashing or making us lethargic or whatever, was Propaganda. It was like one of the few ones that I don't think really has gone into that too much yet.
Yeah. It's most of these records so far have definitely had it's almost like they've got like a sheet of topics that they're like stapled up on the wall as they're writing lyrics, like, oh, you got to hit this one and that one and this one. It's like, gotta have
TV rotting your brain was kind of a meme in the 90s too, though. So they're writing about probably what they're talking to people about or thinking about, and so it makes sense that TV is an often topic.
Oh, totally.
Because, I remember, what was it? What was the one about accidentally killing the babysitter? What was the name of that movie?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I believe the babysitter tells the kids, TV rots your brains in that.
Yeah. Yeah, if nothing else, like, I mean, just like all these records, the fact that they kind of hit a lot of the same topics or similar topics, it's just, it's evidence of what was going on in the culture at the time. Because and it's obviously very prevalent, because all these bands wouldn't be writing all these things about these topics if it wasn't like very prevalent at the time. So yeah, Couch Boy, I definitely liked. It was a good one. How did you feel about Justified Black Guy?
I thought this song was just okay. I feel like this is the main song I've heard off of this record, and after listening to the whole thing, I kind of feel like I would have probably liked them more if that was not my introduction.
I think I can get behind that for sure. I think that this song is good, and I do think that it's sort of right off the bat. This is just, you can instantly tell that this band has gotten better since the last time you heard one of their records. Well, it's so obvious right away. Even if this song isn't really that strong. But yeah, this was a popular song off this record. Even when we were first getting into, years and years after this record came out. But this was definitely this is a
Yeah.
fan favorite, No Use for a Name song. I remember the crowd going crazy for it when I saw them play it.
One of the things I wrote for this was just that, like, even with that song, the lyrics were clearly better than the last record. He learned how to be succinct, I think, which is
Yeah.
like, again, something I think that's very important. When looking at like these songs, you know, the more succinct ones just tend to be better. Not always, but often, you know,
Definitely.
brevity is the soul of wit.
Yes, it definitely rings true. So yeah, this song, it's I don't think it really even comes close to some of the other ones on here, but it's memorable for some reason for some people. I don't really know why. I could kind of see like that intro is sounds very NoFX to me. And I don't know if maybe it was just like the fact that they took that sound that NoFX was using and made it a little bit more accessible, that allowed more people to sort of jump into this kind of punk music, or maybe it was just at the time all the bands that were coming up in '94, it just sort of created the I guess the momentum that everybody needed, to sort of move into more of like this like poppy and more accessible style of punk music. But I just think that this sets the tone really well for what the record is, even if it's not that great of a song, in my opinion, anyway. But let's talk about what is one of the more interesting ones in terms of lyrics, and that's 51 Days. Which is about the tragedy in Waco, Texas that took place in '93. If you don't know any of the history about this thing, the short version is, it's a tragic story about the U.S. government suspected that like a religious cult called the Branch Davidians, that were led by a man named David Koresh, had been building an arsenal of illegal weapons at Mount Carmel Center, just outside of Waco. And the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms tried to serve a search warrant when a gunfight started and 10 people were killed. And that began what ended up being like a 51-day siege on the property. And the FBI assaulted the Branch Davidians with tear gas when a fire broke out and killed, like, was it 70 something people, including like 23 kids or something like that. So it's pretty fucked up. But this is, to me, this is a very like on the whole, it is a very Bad Religion style song. Sounds like Bad Religion.
Much.
The lyrics,
you have like maximum solos. He's doing Greg Graffin style delivery, and they even do like those vocal harmonies that Bad Religion does. It was just nuts.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious, but all that said, it's like done really
very
well.
Very competent.
It's not right, and I mean, we just say it right here. Like a lot of these songs fall into this sounds like NoFX, that sounds like Bad Religion, and we're only 9 episodes in, and we say this almost every single episode. We talk about, oh, this sounds like Bad Religion. It's just so hard to get away from, especially in some of these songs, because he really is like, I don't know if he was like Tony Sly's like listening to like Greg Graffin and like imitating him in order to get better at singing, or what, but I mean, if that was the case, it helped a lot because he's just so much better on this record in general. But there's just times where it's almost impossible to separate just the influence. It's distracting.
I mean, it was just absurd how much it sounded like Bad Religion. How'd you feel about the next song, Leave It Behind?
I mean, this is another one. It very much. It's the same thing. It's Bad Religion, and he's leaning on that delivery. and it's
Very
about the
big.
environment. So it's like it's sort of similar to the first song on
Yes.
the Daily Grind, Until It's Gone.
Yeah.
But this is much better than that song. Yeah, I mean it's fine. This is one of the more forgettable tracks on here. It doesn't really do a whole lot for me. How did you feel about it?
Leave It Behind. I thought it was the first really like not so great, not terribly good song.
Yeah,
And I thought it was a cool
yeah,
topic, but at least I think kind of the perspective they took on it. But it was, I could certainly do without the song.
yeah. I would say this is
Yeah.
the weakest track on side one for sure. But that does relieve us with the sixth track, which is a cover, a Bob Marley cover, Redemption Song. Personally, when I first heard this, I mean, even when I heard this years ago, at first, I mean, I had no idea it was Bob Marley. Because it adapted fairly
Oh
well
yeah.
to this style of music, and I appreciate that they just went and did that, and they didn't try to sound like the
Yeah.
original. I mean, it's just a far cry from the original, and it works. It works well enough. I don't. I definitely like. I think it's very competent. And like it's not a bad listen. And I mean, it doesn't even come close to the original Bob Marley song. I mean, it's a fantastic song, but it's just that one moves at a like so much more of like a leisurely pace,
Yeah.
and it uses only an acoustic
Yeah,
guitar.
it's a
Um,
very for the obligatory punk goes whatever style cover. This was not bad. Uh, the obligatory for each fat
yeah.
release. They definitely commit a much graver sin. I want to say on side two.
Oh boy, we will get there. But that's going to do it for side one. So let's move to some shout outs. Um, I'll start with my very silly shout out that really has nothing to do with anything. Me and Ben were talking before we started recording, talking about the all the wonderful seltzer flavors that are out there. I love so many. I buy seltzer water all the time. It keeps me going. Keep on making really fantastic flavors, all you brands. Just like endless numbers
I wonder when the
of
seltzer
brands making
bubble's gonna
seltzer water, it
pop.
seems like.
I actually wasn't trying to make the pun, but it was pretty good.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, this is actually just like a backdoor way of introducing my next podcast, which is going to be called
You,
Helter
you,
Seltzer. And I'm going to be the Charles Manson of
you're gonna like
seltzer water.
what? Like get like a look? Oh, cult! I
Just
thought
gonna
you were
start a
gonna try to
cult.
like
Just
start a
gonna start a
war
cult.
between like Lacroix fans and Bubbly fans are just
No,
gonna go
I mean,
all helter skelter and go to war with each other.
I would honestly, I'd love to see it. Only the strong survive.
Yeah, so I'm about halfway through reading the book Reign of Terror at the moment. It's by Spencer Ackerman. It gives a really good history of the past 30 or so years in US history, at least as it relates to terrorism and how all of that led up to Donald Trump. He's made a very compelling argument that really kind of the things were in place before 9/11, but once 9/11 happened, somebody like Donald Trump taking or trying to seize power, the January 6th bullshit, all of that was just inevitable. In particular, the way that our leaders responded to 9/11, which was, at worst, trying to stoke like all the racist fervor that was going on at the time, and at best was just pure cowardice on the part of, the handful of Democrats that weren't also stoking all the racist fervor at the time. So I highly recommend reading it. And now we're going to flip over to side two.
Yeah, that book is on my list. I will definitely be checking that out at some point. It's fascinating. All right, side two. For me, this is the better side. Yeah. So where do you want to start on this one? You can start anywhere you want.
You know what? I'm gonna start with the song that I liked the most, although I wrote like the absolute least about. I think probably because I liked it so much, which was Wood. I thought it was an excellent song.
That's so funny. I did the exact same thing.
And it was about like a closed-minded person, which Wood makes for a very good metaphor for that. And I think that this song and the song that follow it, like,
Yes.
really are the most creative, or most creative, but the most distinct sounding songs on the record. Do you agree?
Exactly. Completely agree. Like you nailed it. Like that's exactly what I was thinking as I was listening to it. It's like these two songs, the fact that they come back to back is even better. It's like this great 1-2 punch that I just absolutely love. I think that these are the two. Like for me, these are the two best songs on this record, and it is exactly what you say. Like for me, like I feel like these songs have No Use for a Name sort of inching closer to really like finding their own sound and having more of an identity that's not just like being the sum of their parts. It's like no effects, Bad Religion influences and stuff. I really like both of these songs. I mean, one of the reasons I like Wood so much is just like I love the melodies, but also like it's just so fast and
Yeah.
it's brief,
Yeah.
And then Alone has, I think, it has my favorite like sort of like guitar work on the whole record. And
Yeah.
it's another one that doesn't really like overstay its welcome either.
So yeah, what I thought about what I wrote was that the solos there definitely sound very Bad Religion or No Effects esque, like the type of solos you'd hear on those songs. But like the song overall is, just very, very good, and very kind of just has their own original take on, or the own original sound.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, and plus, like I think Tony and Alone, um, Tony does like that sort of like rapid fire delivery towards the end of the song that works. I think it works really well, and I felt like that was a real risk doing that because like it might not have landed.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it worked pretty well. So yeah, those are definitely my two favorite songs on the record, I think.
So
um,
the lyrics to Alone made me think of this riff on a meme that I've seen before. If you check the chat, I've posted the link to the original meme. And it's a dog, and they're saying please throw. The dog says no take, only throw. The person's trying to take the frisbee from him. He's like no take, only throw. So somebody had made one of those that where the guy says reap, or no, the dog says please sow, and then the guy tries to take it. It says no reap, only so. And that's exactly what I thought while listening to this song, was that cartoon.
that's a very specific thought to link to this, but I get it. But I've never actually seen that meme before.
What's the deal with the skeleton on the cover of this album?
What's the deal with the artwork in general?
Yeah, but the skeleton, I think, is the most troubling thing. Okay, is the skeleton wearing? Do you know what I think the skeleton's wearing?
Yes, I do.
Is it
But
supposed to be a ski mask or something?
I think so. It's probably.
I mean, I don't understand why the skeleton would have blackface on. But it certainly was not done in a way that makes it look not like that.
Even.
Yeah.
No, it's. I did have a note here about how this album art is just so painfully 90s. Like, Jesus Christ, it's so 90s. Like, you just practically fucking smell the 1990s coming off of it. Um, it's just overall like just on the whole a very strange album title and odd artwork. But I guess really when it comes down to it, the artwork's really just to get your attention.
Yeah.
So well done. So were there any other songs on side 2 that you thought were really good?
Yeah, I liked Fatal Flaw. Or not Fatal Flaw, Fatal Flu. And
Yeah.
I wrote in parentheses COVID LOL. I thought this is another song that I thought was very Lagwagon sounding to me. But I liked the song a lot.
Yeah.
And it basically kind of lyrically, in the fact that it sounded like Lagwagon, almost seemed like a like kind of like Island of Shame. Because the topic, I think, is about AIDS. The fatal flu is not really meant to refer to AIDS, but to like the closed-mindedness that people treat
Right.
people with AIDS with.
Yeah. And this is definitely about AIDS, from what I can tell anyway. But yeah, this is a good track. And I think it's a good example of the like pop punk and skate punk elements that are crossing, in a way that feels fresher than some of the other material on the record. And this feels like one of the songs where it's names for a name moving closer to finding their own sound.
Yeah.
I didn't have any real like Lagwagon vibes on this one, but like on the whole, like it's not like such a stretch to feel that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good track. And then, I mean, how did you feel about Straight from the Jacket and Fields of Agony? Because
Alright.
these are just more Bad Religion inspired songs.
Yeah, definitely ripping off Bad Religion heavily here. Like might set off a musical plagiarism detector is what I wrote.
Yeah, Fields of Agony, I think, is the one that was doing that for me. It was really like it's distracting how much it's like pulling Bad Religion.
So I thought Fields of Agony sounded very NoFX.
Did you? Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, it could go either way.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's like flipping a coin. Yeah, those songs were fine. I think Fields of Agony seemed to be probably about the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah, I could see that.
just war in general, but it seemed like the imagery in the song reminded me
Yeah,
a lot of first Gulf War.
it might be about war, but like he's probably pulling from like what was happening at the time, or at least close to the time when he was writing it.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I always kind of like want to laugh when that part when he yells, "What about the economy? What about the economy?"
Yeah.
It just seems a little silly.
I did think that Straight from the Jacket was kind of a clever like wordplay for a title too.
Yeah, I liked that. And that one, I mean, it's so obviously Bad Religion inspired. But I do like the guitar solo that's in the middle of it, and the melody is good, but it just, I don't know, it just kind of ends up making me feel like it's been there, done that kind of deal.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about the last song, Exit?
So I thought that the beginning of the song sounded a lot like the song The Decline.
It's a very, very NoFX inspired intro.
Yeah. I thought it was a good song though.
I felt like it was decent. I like the guitars that are in the chorus, but I think my problem with this song is I think this might be for me the weakest track on this side. And it's almost like it's trying to feel like the end of the album instead of just being a song that ended up last on the track list because of, but it's because of the intro and the outro, and it almost feels like they just like deliberately went in there and were like, oh no, this is the last track, we should really like try to make it feel like a last track. And it kind of works because of putting the intro and outro in there, but like the song itself doesn't really feel like that like grand finale moment that some bands are like really good at, like Strung Out.
Yeah. Well, and also like it's not like the album was written in a way that like you really got to sit down and listen to the whole thing from start to end too, right? Like
yeah, totally agree. And that's part of why I feel like this song feels a little weird. The fact that they have that, pretty lengthy intro and then outro, considering the rest of the record doesn't really do anything like that. Yeah, I think it must be pretty hard to write like a last song intentionally. Trying to hit the listener with that feeling of like coming to the end of some kind of journey and reaching the climax. And this song doesn't hit that mark. But it's decent.
yeah, it was all right.
So those are all the songs that are listed, but there's one more, and it's a doozy. The hidden track is a okay. Ben, they've gone too far.
Oh God, I wrote
medley of covers. It is a medley of covers.
Fucking worst.
Oh,
just wrote fuck this. There's no need for that many covers. No need.
I completely agree. Like I had a hard time listening to this one. It's like the ultimate cover. It's the cover to end all punk covers.
Yeah.
Before Me First and the Gimme Gimmes anyway. But personally, I think we should start to build the narrative that the Fat Mike loves punk covers of popular songs so much that he started by dabbling and having the bands on his label record one for each album. But soon he just couldn't stop himself. He wanted more. He wanted so much more. So he formed Me First and the Gimme Gimmes to satisfy his sick, twisted cravings for punk covers of songs that no one needs.
So, I think that that's not entirely unrealistic. I would certainly believe that. But I also think that maybe what he was doing with all of this was his market research, trying to figure out what covers that Me First should do. So, like, he has all these bands record these covers so that he can see how well the albums sell. By varying the covers. I think he's running linear regressions.
He's outsourcing all the risk. Yeah. I mean, it's smart. It's totally smart. And I mean, honestly, like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes was, as far as from what I could tell, it's a really successful band.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He was definitely like, it's just not for us, obviously. I mean, because like this, all jokes aside, this is executed fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but like I don't ever need to hear it again. That's for sure. They're mixing together covers of The Cars, Just What I Needed, Green Day's Basket Case, which I'm pretty sure that's Fat Mike that's in there doing that part. Missing Persons, Words, Berlin's The Metro, David Bowie's Space Oddity, Tony Basil's Mickey, The Knacks' My Sharona, Twisted Sisters' We're Not Gonna Take It, Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot, Yes's Owner of a Lonely Heart, and Aerosmith's Walk This Way. And holy crap, I don't ever need to hear most of those songs ever again.
I will,
let alone in a cover.
I will say that both of the rival records have infinitely better covers on them than anything that was on the No Use album, as far as covers go.
It's a low bar, but yeah.
I mean, they're both really good fucking covers, so.
All right. Can you pick like a favorite song from side 2?
Oh yeah, I would probably say it was
Is it Wood?
Wood, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to think I like Alone just a little bit more. But yeah, those two, I'm
Those
glad
were
we agreed.
definitely my top songs on
Yeah,
this side.
yeah, good songs. All right, let's talk about the Rev records. Now that we've shared our opinions on the entire album, let's expand the conversation, go a little bit outside of Fat Wreck, and bring in some other albums that came out around the same time as Leche con Carne. You know, just to give a little more context within the punk scene at the time. And Ben, what did you bring?
All right, so I before I listened to the album, committed to Dixie by Avail. I still stand by it. I think it's a good choice. It is showing, a different take on melodic punk than No Use for a Name does, but it's still kind of a melodic punk album with a very strong singer. They're drawing much more, I would say, from the DC style of music than whereas No Use for a Name is drawing from something from Southern California.
Yeah, it's East Coast versus West Coast because Avail is in Richmond.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to say this about this album. When I was listening to it again, the one thing I noticed is this album blurs together for me, but not in a bad way.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is I will often have no idea what song I'm on. I've just been plowing through, and it takes me a bit to remember which songs are the ones I like the most, but it's not in like a bad way that everything sounds the same. It's just this nonstop train that's going. And so they songs flow together, not as much as blending together.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
I think I like I said, this is one of the few records that I can sit down and listen to front to back.
Really,
and almost prefer it that way. Because of that flowing, I think. But my favorite individual songs on this are probably On the Nod, Sidewalk, Virus,
Sidewalk's fucking awesome.
Beliefs Pile, Southbound 95, and then the cover is one of my favorite songs on the record, actually. It's a really good fucking cover of Pink Houses.
Is it really?
Do you not like it?
I don't think it's the fault of Avail here. But I didn't need a cover of Pink Houses. Is that John Cougar Mellencamp?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because there's a couple factors at play as to why I don't really care for this song. It's not the cover that I don't care for, it's the song itself. Part of it is because growing up, my parents fucking loved John Cougar Mellencamp. Okay. So I heard of this song a lot. And I got so tired of it. And then also, I'm pretty sure that at some point years ago, it was used for like truck commercials or some shit.
Oh yeah.
Or it was used for something that just like makes me think like, oh, that's gross.
Okay. Yeah. I think that they take that song and own it is like one of the reasons I like it so much. Like it translates so well into an Avail song.
It does. It was a really good pick for them to cover this song for their specific sound. I totally agree. Yeah, so I'm not like faulting Avail here. It's a very good cover for what that is. I just don't like that song. And I don't know. I'm not as hot on this record as you are. I think Avail's next two records are far better than this one.
I don't disagree with that. I just really fucking love. I don't know if to say far better. I would say that the other two are better. But I just think this album's fucking great, and I really like the fact that like I just kind of subconsciously like sit down and listen to it because I don't listen to whole albums other than for this podcast anymore. For the most part, I've just quit doing it.
Okay.
If a new album comes out, I'll check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just kind of just don't have a strong interest to listen to full albums anymore.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is just sort of the way that music gets distributed now. and the fact that like a lot of bands don't even care to make like an album in a way that like bands used to make albums. I mean, obviously there are bands that still do that, but I just don't know if there are as many bands sort of aiming for that target to make like a, here's 10 songs that all like, work really well together and have a defined style and tell a story or whatever. It's like not even like a concept album, but just like, in the way that a lot of these bands that we've talked about have written these records, that just they feel like all the songs belong together. There's just I feel like there's a lot more records these days that it doesn't quite feel that way anymore. And is it just because everything's like just
Things a playlist.
you're cherry picking stuff? Yeah, you're putting on a playlist, whatever. But this record, like what I can say is like I appreciate that this is their first album, and they've already like right out the gate they're establishing like a style that feels like it's their own. Like we've talked about so many bands here that haven't really done that.
This isn't their first album, by the way.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah,
what's the first record?
Their first record is called Satiate.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever listened to that one.
I owned the record while I was in college because like No Idea was selling it for like $5 or maybe even less or something like that. And I thought the title track was pretty cool. I certainly don't like it remotely as much as the other 3 records. But since you don't really like Dixie as much, I don't think you would love Satiate.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So even in that case, Avail has a strong sort of style present here that I can appreciate. That like they go on to expand and do really amazing things with, especially on Over the Shames. Like that's the Avail record.
Yeah, they peaked there.
I think so. Yeah. But like there's parts of this record that sort of remind me a bit of Rancid in some ways. Just like sort of like the speed and the delivery. But it's on the whole like I like Clone, 25 Years, Beliefs Pile, and Sidewalk's my favorite track on this. But like I just think that the last 3 tracks on this record I could have done without. I just don't need them.
Oh, you don't like him singing about getting a Dixie? That song's so fun.
Yeah, I'm just not as into this one. But it's good. It's got some good tracks for sure that I still really like.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Talk
about Lifetime's Hello Bastards.
One of my favorite records of all time. What about you?
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
This
is an all-time classic that it's just, no matter how many times I listen to it, and I have listened to it so many times over the years, no matter how often I come back to it, it never, ever, like my love for it never fades. This is in the same, category as Jawbreaker's 24-Hour Revenge Therapy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like this is and this really is the sort of the East Coast evolution of pop punk in some ways. But like
I mean like they're kind of the blueprint for most of the shit that gets popular after the year 2000. Or
it's
at least
true.
They those bands turn the pop up to the max, but like
right.
A lot of them have come out and admitted like Lifetime Hello Bastards or Jersey's Best Dancers, take your pick, is the album that they were wanting to emulate.
Yeah. Is it between those 2 records? This is the one, right?
So I think a lot of people prefer Jersey's Best Dancers. If you care about things sounding clean, that'll definitely be your preference. For me personally, though, Hello Bastards is the better record.
Yeah, I agree.
This one is, I mean, the other one's fast too. They're fast, they're catchy. There's,
They're fast, but they mix it up enough that like it never at any point does this record is immaculately sequenced.
oh
Like
yes,
all of these songs just flow so well into one another. It's never jarring. It's really it's unbelievable. Because this it feels like Lifetime are like seasoned veterans. The way that they've written this record, it's crazy. Like they've been doing it for like decades or some shit. Like it just feels so natural.
yeah. I mean, and I mean, they were sort of to some degree, like had been playing in bands. I think since the late '80s, if I'm not mistaken. At least, they were, I think, in some Jersey bands then.
Mm.
But
Okay, but do you know how old was Ari? Because I'm just only asking this question because the lyrics are just they're so rooted in like teenage angst in a lot of ways, or like just it just feels very much like
it is
there's a
very
lot of
angsty.
references. It's a lot of references to like things that you feel and deal with when you're in high school.
Okay, so I will say this. I mean, I think, was Yeeman already starting to get his doctorate while Lifetime was playing? I think so. Um, and then Ari, I know that when I saw him in 2005, he looked older at that point. I mean, I would imagine they're probably like early 20s. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. Demand
Yeah,
demand their birth certificates.
uh, but like that said about the lyrics, I there's still a lot of lyrics on this record that I do really like and I vibe with for sure. Um, but it's for as much as I love the record, like usually the lyrics matter a lot more on the records that I really love. And it's maybe not so much the case here. Um, but I do have a lot of instances where I really like the lyrics. What strikes me is that like how many of them are so simple in terms of the lyrics. Like there's not a whole lot to some of these songs. It almost and like it's sort of like a magic trick where it feels like there might be more to it than that. Like you kind of look at the lyrics of some of these songs, you're like, oh, that's it. Okay. It's just like we're just gonna repeat this a bunch of times or something.
I recall from the liner notes for it that like there were also parts where like things were just kind of scribbled like completely illegibly
Hmm.
as well. So there might actually be more to the songs. Like there's, yeah,
Yeah, maybe in some parts. And some of the songs do have like a sort of like a more normal amount of lyrics, but there's like a bunch of these songs are just like it's very brief in terms of what he's actually saying. Um, but yeah, so what are some of your favorite songs off this record?
all right. Man. So I want to say all of them really, but like,
I mean, that's the short answer for me
uh,
too.
I mean, Irony for Suckers has always been one of my favorites.
Hmm.
I've really been fucking liking Rodeo Clown, and I've also always been a big fan of The Gym is Neutral Territory.
Yeah, The Gym is Neutral Territory is the song that made me get into Lifetime.
It's a great song. Um,
Yeah. Which is strange because of like, it's uh not a fast song. And they play a lot of fast songs, but for some reason that one um I don't know why that was the one that got me into it, but it was from what I remember anyway. Um
Very simple lyrics that are fucking
yeah.
awesome too.
Yeah. For me, I mean my if I have to like boil it down to like a few tracks that are my absolute favorites. It's probably Jim's Neutral Territory. It's Not Funny Anymore. The best song. I can say this for sure. Knives, Bats, New Tats is not only my favorite song on this record. This is like maybe my favorite Lifetime song.
I love that song too. So you picked It's Not Funny Anymore. I was gonna say, picked another cover for this as one of your favorite songs.
Oh, this is a cover? How did I not know that? I did not know that.
You want to know why? Because you only listen to later Husker Du.
Whoa, wait. How? This is a Husker Du song, really?
It's off of Metal Circus, I think. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. I don't usually listen to Metal Circus. Oh, shit. Dang.
It's it's a great song. The original's awesome. The Lifetime cover's fucking awesome. I mean, like, the Lifetime cover doesn't sound that much different from the Husker Du original because, you know, they're in the same wheelhouse enough that it's not like a huge deviation.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those, like, some of the guitar playing in that should have given that away.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Dang, I didn't know that. A little embarrassed. But, fuck, that's a great song. If it's not obvious by now, I don't know a whole lot about the backstory of this record. I just fucking love the record, and I just, for some reason, I never really dipped into, like, any of the sort of stories behind it and when it was recorded and all that.
I was under the impression that Jim is Neutral Territory was a Boy Meets World reference.
It's era appropriate.
Well, and then I think I was making connections in my head, like Kid Dynamite has like reference song names like that as well, right? Like where it's like some sort of TV reference, and then.
Well, that was No More Black. No More Black did a whole bunch of.
Well, the first album was all Seinfeld references, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Not all of them. You know, there's the ratio of people to cake is a reference to Office Space.
Oh, okay. I think I'd spent my entire life just thinking that File Under Black, which is the name is a Spinal Tap reference. Wasn't their name but was File Under Black one as well?
It might be. I mean, that's where their name comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I just the entire time thought that the entire album was Seinfeld references for the song title. Like, I guess I don't get this reference.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few Seinfeld references in there, much more than most records, I'll say. All right, you got any more comments to make about Hello Bastards, other than the fact that it's just a fucking phenomenal record?
I feel bad for No Use for a Name because I think we both picked albums that were significantly better than the No Use for a Name album, even though I think it was the best No Use for a Name album I've ever heard.
Yeah. It's just, I think it does make sense though to talk about these records with No Use for a Name, specifically Lifetime, just because they are sort of the other side of the other side of the coin, other side of the country, whichever one. It's the punk music scene starting to change, and starting to put out these records that are feeling the effects of what happened in '94 with these bands breaking it big. Yeah. It's as much as neither one of us is super into Green Day, there's no debate whatsoever the lasting effects of Green Day on not only like popular music, but like everything, like so many things that were happening in underground music too. And I do think that the popularity of Green Day is at least partly responsible for the direction that a lot of this like style of punk music ends up going for Fat and Epitaph bands specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because it does push everything towards trying something different, leaning more into melodies and doing more like pop, like that type of approach to songwriting. Because you'll really, I mean, there's listening to Lagwagon's Trashed and then going to Haas. It's understandable. We'll talk about it, but it's understandable why a lot of people that were fans of those other two records got to Haas and were just like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah,
just because it's not the same type of thing. Like Lagwagon's very much a melodic hardcore band with some, pop sensibilities mixed in there. But once you get to Haas,
very poppy.
It changes quite a bit. So I think that, but this specifically this No Use for a Name record is what I think is probably the start of a lot of these bands moving more towards that.
Right.
When it comes to the Fat Wreck stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're the first one to really start doing this sort of stuff. I mean, I feel like in a much less competent way, some of those 88 Fingers Louie records at times were hinting at it as well.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it was inevitable. This was the direction that it was all heading. And I think that Leche con Carne is a pretty, if you're gonna plant a flag and say it started here for the West Coast stuff, I think it's a good candidate, honestly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's does it for Rival Records. But do you have any final thoughts on Leche con Carne? We kind of just covered that.
Yeah, we've covered that mostly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think Leave It Behind was the only one that I really thought and the medley were the only ones I really thought should be dropped.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. But on the whole, it's a far better record than I thought it would be. Because I never really listened. I don't think I ever really listened to this record back in the day. I recognized songs like Soulmate and Justified Black Eye. That Justified Black Eye is the one that, like, if you before we listened to it for this podcast, Justified Black Eye is the only one that I probably knew like really well. And I had some passing familiarity with Soulmate. But yeah, it is just huge props to them for stepping it up as much as they did between those two records. I mean, it's crazy. It's just so much better than Daily Grind, which neither one of us was really too hot on at all.
No.
But man, that medley of covers, it's just
heinous.
Kill it with fire. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or most importantly, corrections on anything we might have gotten wrong, and on this episode, there's probably a lot of that because we were just freewheeling. But please email us at ontherecord@gmail.com so we can set the record straight in a future episode. We'll be back in 1 week to talk about Tilts Till It Kills. Thanks for listening.